Hi guys, welcome to Studio Wildlife. In this video I'll be showing you how I paint this squirrel. I start off by blocking in the background using raw umber. I then paint in a rough area of the background using a mix of white, Payne's grey and raw umber to give it this sort of grey look. I refine this and smooth it out a little bit to make it a bit more solid in colour, and then move on to the back of the squirrel. I start with the back of the squirrel because that's the area that I want to be the least focused. So I want it to look kind of blurry and not have massive amounts of detail. To sort of knock it back into the background a little bit more, I use greyer colours. So I use colours with less saturation. The brighter colours, the ones that I want the viewer to pay the most attention to, are going to be near the face and the hands of the squirrel. Whereas the back and the tail, they're much greyer, they're going to be in less detail, so it pushes those areas to the back of the painting. All I'm really doing is building up these layers of fur, this greyed out fur, using a small angled brush. I'm just being careful, following the direction of the fur and studying my reference photo closely. This particular painting was a commission and the photo was actually provided by the client. So I'm just building up more of that fur using that angled brush. I'm glazing back the colours, so I'm using thin washes of acrylic paint to glaze colours to make it a little bit more orangey because I went a little bit too grey, and just adding those tiny details with a detailed brush. Next, I move on to the eyes. I'm just using a small detailed brush to add the highlights, to add the colours to those eyes, and refine the brows or the arches near those eyes. So I start my paintings by blocking in a darker undercolour. So that's what you can see here, where I'm sort of drawing around the edge of the squirrel. I do the darker undercoat first because then it allows me to put lighter hairs over the top. And if you allow some of those darker colours to show through, it really gives the impression of having layers in your fur, and it makes it look a lot more realistic and a lot more detailed, even though you're not actually painting in lots and lots of dark furs. So here I'm doing the exact same thing, blocking in really dark and using a dark paint, I think it's burnt umber and black, to block in the rough direction of that fur. Then over the top of this, using the angled brush again and just building up layers of lighter fur, adding slightly more orange, adding slightly more white to make it less grey, so it pops out, adds that saturation. I just repeat this over and over and over again, adding lighter and lighter layers until I'm happy with the fur. Sometimes I have to adjust the colours, so either they're too saturated or they're not specific enough. So all I do is use some watered down paint, very, very watery, so almost no colour at all, and glaze those colours over the top of the surface of what I've just painted. This can really add some warmth, it can add some saturation, or it can even add cool shadows to the areas that you're trying to adjust. I pretty much follow the exact same process for the hands and the front of the body. I block in my darker colours first, you can see me doing that here. Again, just using that angled brush. For this painting I only really used an angled brush and a detailed brush. There wasn't much else to do. It's only a very small painting, so it's only A5, which isn't very big. So you can't get massive amounts of detail in something that's so small. But what you can give is the impression of detail. So that's why I like to block in those darker colours first, so I can leave some of those darker layers showing through to make it look like there's lots and lots of layers of fur there. So I just build up using the exact same process, building up that fur, layering it on top of one another until I'm happy with the outcome. For this part, I'm just using some raw umber, a little bit of Payne's grey and some white to add greyer and greyer colours. I will eventually glaze over some more orange over the top of this, which is what you can see that I'm doing here. But I established that grey colour just so I could establish the direction of the fur and form the hands. So I made sure that the fur followed the structures of that squirrel, that it followed the shape of those fingers, followed the shape of the arms, followed the shape of the hands, to give it a 3D structure. I then added layers of highlights on much lighter fur to show where that light would be hitting, to really establish that 3D shape and the form of those squirrel hands. Final touches were the acorn, and I wanted this to look shiny, so I needed to make sure to get the highlights right. And I also thought the background looked a little bit too grey, so what I did was glaze over some warmer raw umber over the top, and then touched up the edges using a frayed round brush to give it that blurred look. And then eventually I went on to do my favourite part, which is adding the whiskers, which you can see in a second. And for that part I used a dagger brush, and that is one of my new favourite brushes. So here you can see the finished painting. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, please subscribe to the channel, and remember to check out studiowildlife.com for more wildlife art tips.